What's going on, everybody? 360 Digital Closing Bell here. I am your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, joined live from an undisclosed location here in Denver, Colorado on a beautiful April 20th, 2020. As always, I am joined from an undisclosed location in Dallas, the executive producer of the show and the publisher and oil and gas 360, www.oilandgas360.com if you want to go check it out. Stu Turley. Stuart, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. News desk is going crazy already on Monday with oil the way it is.
Oh, no kidding. And it's partly why I'm excited to record this on Monday morning versus we usually bang these out on Sunday night, because there was some insane stuff going on with the forward curve, whereas I think we'll get into. We're going to start dubbing it the forward square. As always, we're going to check our week ahead in oil and gas. We'll check the levels, check the commitment of traders. Stuart had some interesting things come across the international news decks. We'll take a look at our picks for the week, and always we will chat with Nick and Steven. But before we get into this great show, I just need to do some clerical work. First, if you guys are not subscribed on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, please stop what you're doing, pause the show, subscribe, but pause, resubscribe to the show, subscribe, leave us a nice 5-star review. We really appreciate all the love we've been getting. We've had too much fun doing these, and we will continue to push these out as often as we can. Please connect with us on LinkedIn, Michael Tanner, Stuart Turley, Entercom, Oil and Gas 360. That's where you can see all of the great new interviews that are dropping from the Energy 360 network. We dropped a great one with Landox, Asset Energy Ventures, and David Forsberg. We also had a live event last week that was really talking about the intersection between energy and technology and how venture capitalists and oil field services CEOs both see that going forward. You can check all of those out on our YouTube page. We also have had one of our best interviews was with Inverness and Bernadette Johnson. It's had huge. How many hits do we have on that video so far?
We had like 1,000 in the first 4 hours.
An unbelievable amount. And basically what that was is Bernadette is the vice president of strategy analytics. She basically walked through her and what she thinks Inverness' thoughts are on what the oil market's going to look like and the natural gas market. Honestly, the craziest thing that came out of that interview was $4 natural gas due to some of these four shut-ins. And that's, what I want to shift gears to, which is, some of these four shut-ins that we're going to start seeing due to the fact that the forward curve is honestly now the forward square. For those of you who aren't familiar with what a forward curve is, it's basically just a price graph where you have time on the x-axis, price on the y-axis, and you plot each of the different contract prices for crude oil. So, and as we know, generally in the future, really the forward curve can be two ways. One, it can be upsloping, which means we're in a contango market, or that means the future price of oil is more expensive than the current price of oil. Or to take delivery of a barrel of oil today is cheaper than then to physically go and see if we can get one in the future. When the forward curve is reversed and it's what we would call downsloping, that's what we would call backwardation. And it's funny that backwardation is actually normal. You would think that they would come up like normaldation, that they would call it. But backwardation is normally what the market is having. Your forward curve is generally downsloping, and that signifies that a barrel of oil today is just worth a little more than a barrel of oil tomorrow. And that just makes sense to people. It's a little more expensive to take delivery of a barrel of oil today due to all of the different spreads that each of the different products have to make on it, and to just financially lock yourself into some in the future. The future is what it is. So the forward curve can be both upsloping, downsloping, and those names. The reason why it's called a curve is because generally it's if you go to a forward curve, and I'd recommend going to bluegoldresearch.com/oil-forward-curves. They do probably the best job of just showing what the forward curves are, and you can get a very visual idea. And currently, if you go look at it right now, you're going to see an incredible upslope of the first, say, 3 to 4 months of the forward curve. Really, and to be honest with you, it looks like a square because of how fast the front month contract, which currently today, the last day before it settles, is May 2020, or CLK 220 if you're trading, that's the contract. And then the June 2020 contract, which is CLM 2020, which actually starts officially trading tomorrow. What's interesting, though, is the reason why people care about the forward curve is they care about the spreads. What's the difference between physically taking a barrel of oil this month and taking a barrel and financially rolling it over and getting yourself a barrel of oil next? This has everything to do with storage. And if you're watching crude oil right now, you're seeing two prices. And I'm not joking with you. This is partly why I'm glad we're doing this right now. The current front month contract, the crude contract that settles today. So if you know this, futures contracts, every month you have to switch over to a new one. And they settle physically at physical settlement dates. For this month, it happens to be April 21st, which means if you are trading a crude futures contract, if you bought one last month, if you bought CLK 2020, you bought one contract, and you are holding that tomorrow, you're going to now physically be taking inventory of at least 1,000 barrels of oil, depending on how many contracts you have. So what most people do is they roll their contracts over to the next month. They say, okay, well, I don't actually want to take physical storage. I want to now start trading the June contract. And that's what I did. Every month, you just know what your settlement date is. And when you're day trading, you make sure that you're in the contract that has the most volume. And towards these settlement dates, we see volume shift from the current front month contract to what we would call the month ahead, or now what it will drastically become the current month. And traders watch for these differentials because there's a lot of different things you can worry about. And the reason why you're seeing two different oil prices right now, you're seeing one for the current month, $11.87. That I'm not messing with you, Stu. $11.87. Have you ever seen that? I've never seen that number before.
Oh, back in 1977.
Yeah, I wasn't even a thought yet. My parents weren't even thinking about having me yet. And that's when we were seeing oil at $11. But then if you look at CLM 2020, which is tomorrow when you look at the price of oil. But no, this is important. Tomorrow when you look at the price of oil, you're going to be seeing CLM 2020. You're not going to be seeing CLK 2020, or now we can just start describing K and M. You're going to be seeing $22.35. Now, obviously, who knows what crude does between them, but that's an $11 spread between the two different crude oil contracts. And what that tells me, one, that's insane. Two, this clarifies and justifies, improves everything that Stu had been talking about how storage is becoming a huge issue. The reason why this is happening is for, really only one reason: coronavirus, demand drop, storage. We are seeing no storage available. And what's happening right now is if you have contracts and that are expired today and you have to take physical inventory of this oil, there's nowhere to put it. So oil is drastically dropping. I looked on my phone this morning. I'll try to, I don't want to pull it up because that'll take too long. Western Canadian Select was trending on Twitter because it was trading negatively. That's not what refiners and marketers are buying it for, because that's a whole other can of worms we can get into. Is not, okay, we see what WTI is, but what is an actual marketing company buying this for? We can get into all, that's a whole nother, like I said, we'll get into that, but negative trading on the spot market, unbelievable. And so when you look at these numbers, why this is important is A, storage, but B, don't get tricked by CNBC today when they tell you price of oil is $11. Yeah, I mean, it is, but tomorrow it'll be like $19. And, no one has any idea what, this storage issue looks, they're just looking at ticker symbols right now. So that's, kind of the third thing is just watch out when you do see this, you'll see it roll over. But this is something this is unprecedented. I know you've heard that too many times from this podcast, and we're starting to sound like a broken record, but it just is. So we tell you the truth here. This is unprecedented times. An $11 spread between the front month and the current month, and the front month rolls over tomorrow. Like, I think it's noon today. I think it's noon or 11 Mountain Time is when you have to be out or rolled over. Now, if you're day trading, most brokerages already are rolling you over, so you're not going to necessarily get stuck with this if you're just day trading. But if you're a large, physical oil company, and you forget to roll over, you're taking inventory, baby. You fire up them milk gallons and start dumping because you're going to about 1,000 barrels on your front porch. You come very soon. But and so, before we move into, really the week ahead and what me and Stu think are happening, I just want everyone to understand that when you're looking at the forward curve, the key is which way is it sloped, and the key is the differential between the current month and the front month. And that differential has everything to do right now with the amount of storage that is available. And while the futures price is just what traders think is going to happen, it really is a storage issue. Something else that I think plays a factor into this is now, the settlement date for the M contract for the June contract is like May 23rd. There's a lot of rumors that the economy will be open by then. And because, as futures are a, commodity that trades off news, if the news does drop that the economy will reopen by the end of May or by middle May or by May 1st, you will see that price rise, because this is a lot of the reason why we're seeing, as we're seeing this huge demand drop. So when you're looking at the forward curve, first off, you should be thinking of it as a forward square for the time being. I really think we're going to see this every single month. You're going to see especially as this virus and the economy continues to shut down. If we're in the same place we are next month, it's going to be even worse. It's going to be a circle. We might even have the forward circle where it just starts bending back in on each other. I don't know how that physically works or if that's even mathematically possible, but we're going to get so it's going to be unbelievable.
Talk about putting a square peg in a round hole.
No kidding. So I think we're going to go ahead and shift gears to the week ahead in oil. As always, this is sponsored by Sandstone Capital Group. These guys do insanely good research. They provide all of the levels here for the podcast, and they do it from their Energy Group solution, which is one of the top market intelligence solutions. I mean, right now, if you need to know what's going on in oil and gas, these guys know what's going on. Rumor has it they're also dropping a free newsletter so you guys can stay educated on a weekly basis. Just rumors, though. I'll keep you guys updated. If you do want to get a hold of any of these guys, you can reach them at sandstonecg.com. Give them a call at their phone number. Mention the podcast sent you, because that's the only way we get credit. So if you call them up and you don't mention the podcast, we don't get credit. You'll learn something, but we won't get credit. So we really appreciate their support. And speaking of the stories we're watching this week, I mentioned in that whole first segment about April 21st in the contract rollover. That's tomorrow. Well, something very other interesting happens tomorrow. Not just a very, very spicy, volatile day that comes today with oil and gas. It's Texas Railroad Commission actually votes on prorations. Last week on Thursday we covered really an overview of what happened at that Texas Railroad Commission conference. If you missed it, it was just basically a bunch of oil titans stumbling through Zoom, trying to either explain to you why they should shut in production or not shut in production. And really what it came down to was operators were about 50-50. Most of the research and pretty much people outside of the oil and gas industry were about 70-30 against 4. So it's very interesting. Oil companies who you would think would be maybe a little more in favor of production. There's about 50% of companies that they research when you have to do polling for everybody who shows up. It was about 50-50 split, which was pretty interesting. And, we don't need to spend too much time going over what they talked about. I think everyone has a pretty good handle on it. All we know is they vote tomorrow, and if you had to make me guess, I think it's 2-1 against. I think Ryan Sitton will be the lone for vote, mostly because he was the one that brought this up, and I don't think I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this guy is about to be a private sector employee. So I'm not saying anything, but who knows? Stu, what do you think your vote is?
I hate to agree with you, but I think you're spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it would be unprecedented. I think, I can't even tell you what's happening in oil right now due to the contango and storage issue is unprecedented. If Texas tomorrow also decides to cut production, well, first we'll have an emergency podcast after I wake up from the shock, after they revive me. They come get me they got to warm up the clickers. We will get
Clear.
a pod. Yeah, pull again. Hit them again. But once we get that worked out and we get me back around, we will get a podcast cut and to go over really what the fallout would be. And I'm not even sure I don't even know what the fallout would be right now. I assume you would have some states come out and do the same. I don't know. What would North Dakota do? What would places like Colorado? I don't know. I don't even want to think through the permutations because really we've got some great stuff that came across the international news desk this morning.
Oh, you bet. Hey, Michael, crazy news. A couple things. India has been importing oil crude from Iran. Here's one way to stop it. They had a force majeure. That all
Mm,
their refineries are stuffed because of the
really?
shutdown in India. One one way to stop how do you stop or enforce sanctions? Cut the
To
refineries
shut in
down.
refine and India, no less, one of the largest users of they were 2 years ago. India was what every company was trying to get their crude into. That was we were trying to market to India. They were the next booming economy. So now that I hear India shutting in refineries, we're in trouble.
Oh, hey, one more for all the green folks out there. China this morning is now going to be using coal because they can't even afford the cash flow to get cheap oil. So try this one on. The CO2, let's predict, you heard it here first. CO2 in China is going to go through the roof because of cash flow. Try that on.
Oh no, and then I would love to. I think it's something we're gonna have to spend some time on in the next episode because I have been thinking about this for a week or so now. That the coal and the dirty energy use is about to skyrocket because it's cheap. It's all about the green. So no, and we have some really interesting interviews coming up this week that I don't want to spoil, but I think we have to get that on an outline list. I think we're gonna have some experts hopefully talk about. I think we have two experts we can chat about for this, so it'll be a very interesting week. When we look at the levels for the week, to be honest with you, I'm not giving you levels because I have no idea. The levels would literally be 28 to 15. I mean, I'm serious. Like I don't, if you want large levels for the week, what I recommend is, in the notes, I will give away my charts. Go look at the volume levels. That's about all I can give you right now. I mean, there's about 7 of them that range from 26 all the way to 15. Really, what we're looking at now is what happens with this settlement. I mean, right now, traders have all switched over to trading the June contract. It actually happened on Thursday. So it was just kind of funny. I was watching CNBC Thursday and it creeped me out a little bit. Or excuse me, Friday, I started trading the June contract. I'm watching CNBC on Friday and I'm like, why do they got oil? I'm looking like, what's my data feed doing? Because I don't necessarily plot the differentials. Well, I don't just have the differential between the front month. I'm just, whichever contract's more liquid. And to get people an idea, on Friday, it was about 600,000 contracts that were being traded, per tick on the June contract. There was only like 100,000 for May. So, I mean, everyone had already moved over, but yet when you looked at a ticker, you saw 11. And so that's partly why I wanted to spend that time talking about in this first segment. But, level wise, I mean, we're 22.38 right now as we record this live here at about 6:40 here Monday morning. I see this thing going down a little bit. If you had to give me my bias for the week on oil, I am short. I do think we're going to stay above 20, though, due to the fact that Trump has come out and is very persistent on reopening the economy. I know specifically Texas Governor Greg Abbott has mentioned April or May 1st is when he wants to reopen the economy. Do you have a
Yeah,
time date that you come
Texas
out?
is opening today. I think Governor Abbott wants to open.
I mean, and not to say that, I'm not a medical expert, so I don't want to turn the medical, but I mean, if you just Google unemployment right now, it's unbelievable. I mean, we can't constantly and we can't shut down permanently. And, at some point you have to continue to, you have to reopen and I'm glad it'll be a very interesting case study. But especially with Texas reopening, you're going to see people driving it. Hopefully we can see demand come back just a little bit in order to sort of support these prices. I don't see necessarily below 20, but what do I know? Crude oil's trading in. Futures contracts at 11.66. Crude spot 11.82. So I mean, there's a 20 cents difference between that spot and the crude. So just unbelievable. When we look at the commitment of traders, it sort of tells the same story. Producers who are in hedges cut their long positions by a lot, which makes sense. They also cut their short positions. Swap dealers added about 12,000 contracts to the long side, which is abnormal unless we're in extremely low oil prices, which we are now. So you'll probably see that number oscillate back and forth between positive and negative, just depending on how the week is. Just remember, the commitment of traders is a Tuesday to Tuesday report. So this is covering April 7th through April 14th. So put yourself in that mindset when you're hearing these numbers, because that's, we're looking at what happened in those weeks. Managed money, hedge funds, they got long, as always, 24,000 contracts on the long side. Hedge funds, just so everybody realizes this when they're listening to this, hedge funds, if you look up hedge funds annualized return over like 10 years, it's not great. I think it's less than the S&P 500. I think it's really, really less than the S&P 500. Here we go. A study by Yale and NYU Stern, exactly. An economist suggested that during a 6-year period, the average annual return for hedge funds was 13.6, whereas the average annual gain for the S&P 500 was 16.5. So that's how I was looking. You're losing 3% investing with hedge funds. So yes, everyone talks about what's your favorite hedge fund doing. They're honestly not that swift. If you're investing all your money in S&P 500, I mean, that's the numbers. I mean, it's just the numbers. It's on average, though. So some years hedge funds are better. Other years hedge funds can be way worse. There's a lot of hedge funds getting pounded right now. Except I did read an article on there's a certain type of hedge funds that do that hedge their equities positions basically the same way oil operators hedge their oil production. Oil operators go out and buy crude oil options. Well, you can buy the same thing for ES. And a lot of these large hedge funds, they actually hedge their own positions with these options. They're called like tail risk funds. Oh, I read there was one in California, Newport Beach is up like 600%, has returned like over $1 billion to stockholders in that company over the past 6-week period due to the fact that their hedges are cashing in so much. That's how much their insurance is becoming worse. So even hedge funds hedge. That's what we talk about, a dream within a dream, Inception style. But no, so that's what we're looking for in oil this week. Like I said, my bias on oil is short, but I could also be very wrong if the news swips. I'm looking for Texas to see how things open up there, and if we could see some demand come back, it would just be needed for everybody. But I think it's time now to move into the picks for the week. Do we have anything from Tomcat this week?
Yes, talked to Tomcat, and his bottom feeding strategy is making him money last week. All of his research is coming back with more bottom feeding.
Stick with what's working. In this market, bottom feeding may not necessarily get you fat returns, but you're going to win every time. And when you're looking at a winning percentage, he was 4 for 4 last week.
Yes,
you'll take that. I'll take that to the bank.
He is. So I'm up on mine from last week, and it's partly because I've got it diversified between coal, solar, as well as my regular stock. So I'm trying to spread out the horseplay there.
Well, no, and that's a really good, I think, important point I want people to catch is diversification when you talk about putting together a portfolio. You never want to be too heavily leveraged. I mean, look at me last week. I was all in XOP. I was all in energy equities. And I got my shorts eaten on it. Lost a lot. The key, what Stu mentions, diversification. If you're gonna get into oil and gas, maybe hedging yourself with some, solar companies, hedging yourself with some coal, hedging yourself with some renewables type company that can maybe balance out for times like this is extremely important. And my pick for the week. Obviously Stu held in his, what were actually the ticker symbols on you? You were in LNG, you were in Cheniere. Those were the two.
You bet. Let me get there. I'm on Tomcat's screen right now.
Yeah, no worries. And,
and it is LNG, Geopark, and Enphase, which is ENPH. Got a nice green screen sitting over there. And
I love it. No, and Geopark, while it is one of those oil and gas, the key is what we talked about, good management. So I'm a big fan of the Geopark stuff. And so, me, I'm just short oil this week. I'm more of a futures guy. I'm just going to be day trading short futures all day. Crude inventory days, Monday or Wednesday is going to be great because we're going to be looking at some of this. I've been doing some domestic production research, seeing if I can get a little insight to see what we can do there. It'll be fun to get in on that. But besides that, I think I'm avoiding equities this week. I would probably get long S&P if I dabble in the equities market. I don't know what the XOP is. If you had to give me my bias, it'll probably, we're at 42.36 right now. It was up $4 over on Friday. Great, right after I exit. It's almost like they wait for Michael to exit his position, then we'll run. Sometimes it feels like that always happens. But I think you'll see a little bit more on XOP. 44 looks like a good level for me. Really, it just depends on what this news happens. If Trump comes out and the news continues to be this week that he's pushing for the economy to reopen and we see some of the COVID-19 numbers come back down, I think we're going to see just oil naturally rise. And, I mean, really, when you look at the oversupply right now, $30 is the level we're looking at. So, I mean, that's what if we can get some of this economy reopened, I could see crude oil running all the way up to that. But then again, now we're just guessing. So we don't need to go that far. Stu, is there anything else we need to chat about before we give Stephen and Nick a call?
My head's exploded, as we say in Texas. So.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You know, for reference, oil's now $11.50. I mean, I wonder if it gets single digits. Should we just hang on? I wonder if by the time we have this call with Stephen and Nick, we'll have to check in, see what the price of oil is to make sure it doesn't go.
You remember Johnny
digits.
Carson? I know you're the amazing Kreskin. $8.97.
I love it. I love it. So, well, cool. I think we got to get Stephen on the phone now. High-level stuff there from Nick Berry. As always, we got to give it a little jab in our favorite mind CEO, Matt Gallagher. But we really appreciate you guys checking out the show, and we're going to go ahead and let you guys get back to work. Thank you for checking out the 360 Digital Closing Bell. We'll see you guys later this afternoon for the Digital Ticker.